Oh my god, look at this adorable panda. He is my new favorite thing ever. And my chariot of destruction! Okay, so not my usual content on this channel, but like everyone else on the planet, I have been addicted to Palworld. It's Pokemon with guns, as you've probably already seen or heard a million times now, but it's actually pretty far removed from Pokemon. The main idea is that it's been set in a survival game, and a lot of the addicting mechanics come from the core of typical other survival games. You start off with nothing but the burly abs on your chest, pick up basic resources off the ground, beat up some children, you know, your usual survival game experience, as you work towards building a base and upgrading as you go along, automating the more basic tasks as you get near the end game, using slavery. But don't worry, it's the good kind of slavery. Whatever helps you sleep at night, have more of that, because this game gets dark really fast. Some people have said this is what a realistic Pokemon game would look like. Pals, as they're called, will eat humans. Humans will hunt them for their meat or furs, or oh so precious pal oil. Where are all the elephants? I've killed like 40 of them, but I need 10 more. And pals will actually work for you if you assign them to your base, doing various tasks based on their work suitability. They'll get depressed with poor working conditions, which you can acknowledge, or work them extra hard like an evil dictator. This game lets you do the wildest things. You can capture humans who, yes, will also work for you. Getting some fine lines here, Palworld. Or like the butcher's knife. But I'll save that little wonder for you to experience yourself. Dark humor aside though, I think they actually did a really good job on the mechanics in this game. They mash a lot of different genres together. Arc survival is a big one apparently, which I've never actually played myself, but I hear Palworld draws a lot of similarities from that game. The core survival element of Palworld that I mentioned is integrated really well actually with the monster catching genre, because pals you capture and put to work will eventually become your main way of getting things done. Like Pokemon, each one has varying stats and a different type that's super effective against one thing and not very effective against another, but in this game, every pal matters. Even if a pal has weaker stats, it may make up for that with the specific tasks it's capable of performing. The stronger ones can stay to fight with you in your party of 5, and the other ones can be assigned to your base to do things like farming, mining, cooking, all those classic survival game jobs. Not only does this make pals a big focus of the game, as it should, but it also lets you as the player leave the tedious grinding of resources to your pals for the most part. Well, you get to do all the fun stuff like exploring the surprisingly massive map. No loading screens, by the way. You get to fight bosses, and you of course get to discover new pals to add to your team. Catching is a big part of the game, obviously. You get rewarded the more you catch, but do you even need an incentive? Since you get so much use out of your pals beyond just your party, I was always super excited to catch something new to see how strong it was, or maybe if it was a higher level worker at doing a task my base might have been struggling with. And each one also gets random passive skills assigned to it, like Brave, which boosts attack, or Work Slave. I couldn't make this up. So even if you already have a Dig Toys, it doesn't hurt to catch another one, or several others, to see if it has better traits for working. If you get too many of the same pal, you can sell them to the completely trustworthy pal merchant, or grind them up in the pal condenser to make one stronger pal. Like this guy who I hired but found out he's a slacker. Into the blender. For all you min-maxers out there, you can also genetically modify your pal's passives through breeding. Breeding can be quite the process to set up because you need a whole search engine to see what crossbreeds into what. And in the first place, you need to build a breeding pen, which needs wood and stone and fiber. You need a male and a female that produce the offspring you're looking for and have the passives you're looking for. And then you need birthday cakes to welcome your newborns into the awful world you've created, which again needs ingredients like eggs and milk and a bunch more things. Then you need something to lay the eggs and gather other resources. But thankfully I have this massive comp. So shinies do exist in this game too, but instead of being simply discolored, they're called luckies. And they'll be bigger than usual along with a boosted passive and a special move. So if you hear that shiny noise, try and seek it out because not only is it rare, but it's also stronger and works harder. If you take on one of the many boss fights, that pal will also be bigger in size, which can lead to some very funny looking proportions to the other pals in the world if you catch it. It can also provide a tactical advantage in fights too. In combat, you as the player are actually involved in the fight. You start off with a bow, a crossbow, a melee weapon, or gun in the mid-game, and fight alongside your pal, which, if we're just comparing to Pokemon for a minute, is so mind-blowingly cool. I have wanted to be able to do something like this since I first sunk my baby teeth into Pokemon games. But not only are you a part of the actual battle, you still have to manage your pal. Sure, it will automatically use whatever moves it's learned, but you still want to pay attention to its health bar and swap it out with something else when it starts getting low. Because as long as it doesn't faint, it will gradually restore health inside his ball, and you can send it back out later in the fight with a good chunk of its health restored. You can also use this returning feature to pseudo-teleport your pal out of a dangerous enemy attack and resummon it in a different location. This has definitely saved me in a few fights, but the animation does take a few seconds to pull off, so you want to time this when you're not in danger as well. Each pal also has a special partner skill associated with it, and this can be anything from a skill that helps them with mining, a passive skill that increases your carry weight limit, or various combat skills you can activate with them. The most common partner skill is one that lets you ride and take control of your pal, and this has to be one of the cooler ones anyways. Outside of battle, this lets you explore the map quicker, using Rush Ore to dash around or Beacon to fly across to new areas. But in battle, taking control of your pal means you get to expertly dodge enemy attacks and use your own moves in ways that the AI just never could. You can also take to the sky to have 3-dimensional battles, which is just nuts. Don't get too swept away though with how awesome you feel, because when you do get hit with enemy attacks, it'll hit both you and your pal, so you will die faster being mounted in a lot of cases. Even though you can attack with your own weapons, you are secondary to the fight. You'll fire small shots to support your pal and distract the enemy, but your pals are really the stars here. You won't be dealing that much damage in comparison, and you also don't have 5 pals worth of health on you, so you have to dodge attacks and use your pal to body block yourself sometimes so you don't die. And this is where the oversized pals can actually come in handy. If I'm getting low on health, I can hide behind my giant Quiverton boss that I caught earlier, heal up a bit, and then ride on it to finish the job. As far as guns go, I actually found myself not using them all that much, apart from the pals that get to use them for free. But bullets that the player uses are pretty expensive to craft and have similar resource costs to pal spheres, which I often prioritize since catching is your main way to level up. The crossbow felt like one of the strongest weapons in the game actually, since arrows were so cheap and reasonable to craft. At least until you take on the Elite Four. Syndicate leaders. Don't sue me, please. When you have to deal upwards of 200,000 damage in a time limit of 10 minutes, you're gonna want to help out your pals a little bit. So I definitely shelled out for bullets against these, and I underestimated food for way too long. As you progress, you can upgrade your cooking facilities and start cooking meals that actually give you bonuses during fights, like a 20% attack boost for Gourmet Ichthyordeer. Bet you'll never see Game Freak let us eat our Pokemon. The final fight was pretty tough. I'll save you the footage for spoilers, but it is quite a grind to level up once you hit around level 40. You pretty much need to get to the final level, level 50, to beat the last leader, but at this point in the game, I had pretty well explored the whole map and taken on all the pal boss fights, except for this guy who kept spawning in the walls, and I'm still not able to capture him. Maybe this will end up getting balanced in the future, or more exciting late game content will be added. We are in early access after all, so obviously this is very forgivable. But for now, if you find yourself getting bored with the late game grinding, they've included a really useful option in your world settings that lets you increase your XP multiplier up to 20 times the normal amount. And I think this is a must-have to turn on once you reach around level 40 right now, at least until more content is added to the game. There's just a little something missing there. Overall though, the game has a lot of really useful quality of life features, like all these difficulty settings you can customize. When you're inside your base boundaries, you also have access to all of your items sitting in chests when it comes time to crafting, so you don't have to lug around 500 bricks with you to get stuff done, because there is a carry weight limit, which makes you move super slow. But they also have a grappling hook in the game that lets you grapple to the nearest chest if you're weighed down, which is very useful. This item was also super fun to use in boss battles to dodge big attacks the enemy might be charging up. TMs, or skill fruits in this game, can be used to teach any pal a new move, regardless of what type they are, and when a pal learns a new move, it just adds to the move pool they have access to, and you can go into their profile and swap their current moves out with anything they've ever learned in the past. All just really nice quality of life things. There's obviously a handful of bugs right now too, being in early access, but whether this is a good or bad thing is up to you. There's some pretty funny ones. Base building I didn't really touch on much yet. You get to build up to 3 different bases where your pals live and work for you, and you can build structures similar to Valheim to make houses out of. This building system is actually pretty clean, except when it's not. You put down a foundation to build everything else out of, and these foundation blocks snap really nicely together, but the issue comes when you want to build somewhere else in your base, or especially if you want to build on 2 different heights. I had a nightmare trying to line up my staircases on the bottom level with my top level, as I attempted to use the natural cliff to make my base out of. But it's not like Minecraft where the whole world and all of its space are made of cubes. You have to be very precise in Palworld. So I found myself tearing down my foundation and starting again and again just to line these things up, which took me more time than I'd like to admit, but it almost looks cool, even if I did give up partway through and just satisfied myself with this box. This game is probably beatable from start to finish in about 60 hours comfortably, I want to say. The other hours I spent in this game were trying out the different mechanics like breeding and the infuriating building system, but a good chunk of this was also spent in multiplayer, which as you've probably seen already is a massive part of this game. Now I tried private multiplayer servers with friends and public multiplayer servers online, the latter of which I don't think is super playable long-term in its current state. Immediately when I entered, people were talking about how they'd been griefed and banned by hackers, and I only got about 10 minutes in myself before I lost connection and couldn't rejoin again. To be fair, I don't think the developers, nor anyone for that matter, was expecting the sheer amount of popularity this game had, so lag and poor server connection seemed inevitable. I did try again later and was actually able to play for a few hours, and I will say it was pretty cool seeing the world populated with other people's bases. Currently how multiplayer works is you pick a spawn location in one of several outer islands, and each one has slightly different pals in the area, so as I was adventuring around the map I saw all these different bases with slightly different pals inside them because those players started in different spots than me. And I think this diversity is really important for an open world game rather than just having 3 starter pals you get to choose from. At least it's somewhat diverse right now. The base you build is not currently interactable by other players, nor are you and your pals, so in theory this just lets people coexist in the same world. You can chat with people, maybe take on higher level pals together, but ultimately you leave each other alone. You can also start a guild to share your base with other people, so you could come on here with your friends and work together to build up resources and take on boss fights together, which is really fun. And while mostly everything is shared with your guild members, your pals are kept exclusively to yourself, and you can access those at your pal box. This lets you work together as a team, but still build up your own collection of pals. I do think that right now, private multiplayer is a lot better. You don't have to deal with as many server crashes since there's less people on, and don't have to worry about hackers. You will encounter some lag if using a server to host, but I imagine all of this will be fleshed out in the future. This really is built to be a co-op game. The devs have said that PvP is something they want to push for, so I'm excited to see where that ends up. I could see some parts of this game being really fun with that, though I am curious how that will be handled with players' bases, because it seems pretty annoying to have someone come into your base and destroy everything when the progression in the game is just so long. Not to mention how many resources you need to build up in chests to afford anything. Thankfully your level and all of your boxed pals are tied to your player, so even if your base does get demolished, you still have things. But I could see one player or team of players dominating the map because they managed to wipe everyone out first and hold a monopoly on all the resources. I'd expect there will be certain areas you can PvP, and then you have some safe zones, like maybe even your base will be a safe zone. I don't know, but I'm excited to see what the devs come up with. They've already put out a roadmap of future things they want to add to the game, so as long as they don't get sued by Nintendo for having similar looking Pokemon models, I think this game will continue to impress people. Overall, I've had a ton of fun with Palworld. Even starting from scratch to try multiplayer after already beating the full game was fun all over again since I had more experience and new ideas on how to play. And the diversity in starting locations means you just get to play slightly differently. The world has shown time and time again now that we are desperate for a Pokemon game that just breaks the formulaic system. Pokemon Arceus, which this game seems to draw at least a little bit of inspiration from, brought old players back to check out the new format. Pokemon Go, if anyone still remembers that.
Pokemon go to the polls.
I know I could never forget. Thank you, Hillary, for that. But Pokemon Go was like a fever dream. Everyone and their mom was playing that game. And now with Palworld being the second most concurrently played game ever on Steam, I'm starting to see a pattern here. I wonder if the Pokemon Company will too. Let me know in the comments what you think of this game. Are you gonna pick it up before Nintendo banishes it to their equivalent Shadow Realm? If you want to check out more reviews of games I've put way too many hours into, you can check out the links on screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.